Game loaded.
And we are live with the Lessons Learned podcast with myself, Rafael Pinheiro, also known as Lessons Learned, and our friend here, Chapamon Aragon. How are you doing, Chapamon?
I'm doing good. How about yourself? Happy New Year.
Same to you, and same to all our viewers and our listeners, where they may be. Tonight, because it's the beginning of the year and there's not a lot of news, essentially, we're gonna just talk about a couple of pieces of news we're gonna talk about, which probably you heard already. One of them is the situation with, and I'm gonna search the news here. Yes, with YouTuber Logan Paul, who he went to Japan and he was doing a show basically in a forest known for having a lot of suicides, and lo and behold, they came to a body, someone who apparently had committed suicide. And apparently YouTube was fine with that, even though everyone else was like, dude, this is no, this is not good. And jokes were made and stuff like that. Eventually he was like, no, I'm sorry, you know. But the thing about it is, if you know anything about YouTube, is that you have to edit videos. You have to at least put the title on. It takes a while for something to upload. Even if you have a very fast connection. So some people, especially if you have an editor, should have gone like, hey, Paul, we have a dead body here. Somebody who probably committed suicide. I don't know, maybe we can handle this a little bit better, maybe?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things about the internet, the Wild West nature of the internet and YouTube rearing its ugly head once again. So basically, it's like everybody's been commenting about it. It's like, oh, start a new year. Oh, here we go again. We have a YouTuber growing up. So it's like, boy. I don't know if anything to say about it, but
well, we'll see. It seems kind of odd that YouTube isn't all that unfazed by it.
Yeah. I mean, YouTube, this program, which we're doing live on Twitch right now, I usually load up the VOD. And the moment I load the VOD and say, okay, I want to do commercials on it, right? Like, no, it's not suitable for most audiences. Like, what? But just talking from just what? But apparently a dead body from someone who has millions of subs, that's fine.
Yeah.
Political commentary? No, that can't get. Dead bodies in Japanese forest? Again, fine.
Well, wasn't it reported that the video was allegedly unmonetized, which I kind of find fire to believe because I am cynical.
Probably. But even if it wasn't monetized, it's one of those videos that attracts a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah.
So this guy already had a lot of subs, right? And this is just going to be something that's going to drive, more sensationalize his channel and his discovery. So it's like, overall, it just feels wrong. But that is also matched with news, for example, and more on a political side of Facebook, ending accounts on the behest of both the United States government and the Israeli government, as well as Twitter putting their own. They are putting new rules to deal with trolls and the like. And Sanguchede Papas Fritas says, hi, welcome to the program. I don't know what sanguchede means. I know papas fritas, which is, French fries. But I don't, well, maybe that's just a name. Well, anyway, welcome to the program. And we are talking about the Logan Paul thing and internet censorship for a little bit. That's basically the biggest news right now on the YouTube, Twitch front, mostly in the YouTube front. But really tonight we're going to talk about it, and hopefully we can fill an hour. I always say that, well, maybe we're not going to fill an hour, but we end up filling an hour anyway because I talk a lot. So there you go. It's going to be modding, DRM, and keeping old games alive. The reason why this came up is because I was thinking, okay, I just finished playing the latest Doom on stream. I had a lot of fun. The campaign was rather short, and I was like, I'm not gonna go and do all the other things, the arcade mode, stuff like that. I'm just gonna do that on my own time. If I replay it, I'm gonna do it on my own time to get all the secrets and whatnot. But I probably do that. I say I want to play. What other game can I play? And I say, Mass Effect. Because reasons, why, commit to an extremely long series of games that will be 120 plus hours, give or take. Probably 140 hours with all the DLC, which I don't have and I'm not going to buy. And I'm going to do that and said, well, but Mass Effect is an old game, so I need to mod it. And what happened, this is how it went down. I played Mass Effect on PC before. I got it on Steam. I originally played it on the 360. Okay. When you went to Steam, the version I bought has Bring Down the Sky DLC for free. But you have to load it separately. Okay, it's a little bit of a hassle, but there you go. You hate it. You hate Mass Effect. Well, I won't blame you for that. That's everybody has his own take. I personally love it, but it has problems. And it was like, oh, I got to do that, and okay. But then this time around, because last time I had it was on my own computer, so this time around I was like, okay, I'm gonna load it again, and preparing. I need to get mods. Get mods, etc. To make it look, more modern,
presentable.
Because it's a bit rough around the edges. At least the first game, it's an old game. So I'm gonna get the mods. I'm gonna do this and that. It's like, oh wait, where's the Bring Down the Sky DLC? It's nowhere to be found on Steam. But the game is still on Steam because I still have the game account on Steam. So it's like, and I know I had it because I paid for it. Oh, wait, you have to go to Origins. But wait, it isn't in Origins by itself. No. You had to go to another solution, which gives you to a page, and most of the links were dead. And I finally got the right link, which meant that I finally got into sort of what I call the gray web, where it's all... Gray web is like the collective backyard of the internet. Like everybody throws all their old garbage and that those sheds where people's like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna buy, I don't know, I have my Halloween and
Christmas decorations,
and they're just stuck there with the rats and cockroaches and whatever, right? And that's one of those pages like, oh, EA still had it. It's like, whoa, EA has it. It's like, but it should have been on Steam because the game is still on Steam and I paid for the game on Steam. And then I remembered that in the digital distribution age, we don't own shit, and that's one for that one's for YouTube. If I can't monetize my videos, you're getting the naughty words. Okay, I'm sorry. It's like you don't own games, so EA can leave the main game that you paid for, which included an offer for free DLC. Take out the DLC, put it in this gray page somewhere. Right, and why would they do that? Oh, because if you really want to make it easier on yourself, you better go buy the N7 version of the game, which has all the DLC and Origin, and you got to go to Origin, and it's all about DRM. Mm-hmm. Now, what most people don't know is that DRM does not stand for anti-piracy. It does not stand for anti-theft. It stands for Digital Rights Management. DRM was never about fighting piracy.
Nope, it's about controlling information.
Exactly, it's about hooking you in, getting you in what the business is known as the ecosystem. Like you're an animal in a zoo or something. Well, your wallet certainly is. And so why would EA do this? Well, because most of the games now are on Origins, and they want you to be on Origin, not Origins. That's a different thing. They want you to be there. So they can't really remove entire things altogether because people would complain. Again, people like me who already bought the product, right? So you can find Mass Effect, Mass Effect 2. Also, they want you to do bundles. And by the way, you think EA is the only one that does this? Bethesda does it as well. You know, Skyrim, you know, the game they sold multiple versions of in every single machine out there and will continue to do so until they can get into your local toaster. Well, if you get the vanilla version of the game, you can buy it. It's obscured because if you're on Steam, the first place they're going to point you is the latest version of Skyrim. Okay, but you bought the vanilla version. Why would you do that? Well, because a lot of mods that you may want to use still use the vanilla version. Fair enough. Let's say that now you want to get the DLC. Well, again, Steam selects away from that. So you have to sort of dig in and try to find the DLC if you didn't buy it all at once. Maybe because you wanted to be a smart consumer and not spend, $100 on a product that, you could have bought piece by piece, right? If you wanted to. Or maybe you didn't want the DLC, right? Or you already played it and it's like, I played it on the Xbox. And it's like, I don't care about the DLC, so I may buy it in the future. But again, it's still available. It's supposed to be support for a game that you're still selling. And quote unquote, I'm supposed to own, but I don't.
Yep.
And there you go. And it's stuff like that really got me thinking now. Also, the idea, again, they can repackage a game and sell it to you again and again and again. A new console or every couple of years on PC, etc. But at the same time, we also have the patching culture, which is the promise that they're always going to patch games and,
give more support,
constant support, and by patching. Oh, it's a good thing that we have a day one patch and a week one patch and stuff like that, because they're always working and they're always supporting the game until they don't.
Yep.
EA is very famous. For example, last year they abandoned Andromeda. They're still supporting it though. Well, let's make that very clear. They're supporting the multiplayer, the microtransaction laden, loot box driven Andromeda multiplayer. The single player, not so much.
Nope. And then, of course, let's not forget they shut down servers constantly for some of their multiplayer games.
Mm-hmm.
Usually a lot of their older sports games.
Yeah. And again, if you have DRM, also means that, I have this great single player game, but I need to have DRM. Can I still play it? Oh, well, these clients offer online, offline modes. It's not the same thing. Because, again, they could change it so that the game is no longer compatible with that client. Or you bought it on one client, you bought it on Steam, but now you need to have Origin or Uplay or something else. And that happens with a lot of Ubisoft games. You can buy them on Steam, but you need to have Uplay. Like,
yeah, actually, I ran into this issue this week. So I started playing Sound Shapes for the PlayStation Vita, and works fine when I'm on at home, but as soon as I take it to work, it will not launch if I try to launch it from its home page, because it needs an internet connection, and since it can't find an internet connection, it just shuts itself off. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that's because it has some sort of DRM or if it's poorly programmed to where it I want to connect to the scoreboards, but I can't, so I'm just going to not launch because programming issue. And there's Wi-Fi at work, but I think the Vita's browser will no longer allow me to click on browse the websites through that particular Wi-Fi, so I can't press OK, I accept our terms of conditions for using the free Wi-Fi. So I can't play this portable game anywhere unless, of course, I had it already running on the Vita and just it just running in the background. I put it on suspend and take it to work, and then it works fine,
which is murder on your batteries.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
And then that's just but don't I own this game? I have full rights. I paid good money for it when on sale. But
well, here's where I get my old law student hat on me and a little bit of history. From the very beginning of commercial software, the argument has always been, and this is very similar to when VHS came out and even books and stuff like that, the idea that you don't own the software, you have a license.
Yeah.
But the reality was more close to owning a because you have the ability to own physical, the container in which the software was in, like a container, like a VHS has a movie on it, a book has letters printed on it, and you own tapes, floppy disk or CDs or whatever, some kind of physical or cartridge or tape cartridge of some sort. You had the physical media. You had a lot of rights over it. So essentially, you did own it. You at least own a copy. And that was as long as you didn't break it or it didn't wear down or got lost or got dirt or anything like that, you own it, you can still use it as long as you also had a working platform for it. In fact, there's an entire industry out there that's still making new games for older platforms. I saw the other day, I think we talked about this last year, about an RTS that someone made for the Commodore 64. Like a brand new RTS. So that's it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it was either like last year or the year before that I saw that makers of Retro City Rampage actually ported their game over to the PlayStation Vita unnecessarily, and they uploaded it to the PlayStation Network, even though I think internet or PlayStation Network access is no longer supported on PlayStation Vitas.
Again, that's the thing. It's things become outdated. But as we moved into the completely digital distribution age, for the first time, because in many ways the only real limitation was you can't copy what's already there. You can't claim essentially what boils down to distribution rights, as well as taking the code and stealing for yourself. Although game mechanics and titles, a couple of things that you can actually copy. In fact, most of the things in games, that's why we have game genres, because people copy game mechanics and the like, right? You can't say copy a mascot. We talked about ukulele last year or something like that. You can't make an exact copy of Sonic the Hedgehog or Mario, because that's copyrighted and intellectual property. But a lot of things like the mechanics, even titles could even be copied, right? Because there's a host of older legal cases, as well as a set of law that deals with that. I can't take a book. The same reason I can take a book to a local photocopy place and just photocopy the book, and then distribute it to my friends, and for actual money. I can make a copy for myself. I can even bind it and have it. I can pay for binding it. It's like, I have a copy of this book. It's my original book. I give it away or get stolen or falls apart. I have a copy. I can do that. Same thing with VHS. In fact, one of the earlier cases around home video was that, yes, you could make copies of your own movies. You could not distribute those copies either for free or, especially for sale, because you don't have the right of distribution. Although you could lend or sell your original copy. So as long as you had physical copies, that was the case. In fact, the old joke went back when now 6 years, coming too close to 6 years, when the PlayStation and Xbox One came out. It's like, oh, Xbox One is going to have all these features about sharing your games. And we were like, but it's kind of complicated. And the reason why it was complicated is because licensing. In many ways, Microsoft was looking forward to saying, you know what, we're going to have DRM on everything. So might as well have DRM in our machine from the get-go. People didn't like that for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And so if we want to have this, then we can try to incentivize people by having these things. The problem is it came off as being what they are, limitations. What did Sony do? They made a quick video saying, oh, you want to share games? Here's my physical copy that I give to my friend. There you go. There you shared it. Of course, what a lot of people said, it's like, yeah, but Sony, most of the games you're going to sell are going to be through your store anyway. So you don't have a way to, share that. You can share games on Steam, although I never used it myself. There's even a cross-share library thing with GOG, but it's not really authorized by Steam. It's all done on GOG. I never used it myself. I don't care for it. But the convenience, the slight convenience of able to, and I know because I spent like $100 or more, a couple of days ago, the winter sale, I bought a bunch of games. Of hey, I got this game, boom, I got it. It's overridden by DRM and licensing issues, and the fact that
Yeah.
companies are not committed to supporting games. It's one of the reasons why GOG is so popular. It doesn't have the library that Steam has, but you want all those games. They will take down the time to try to make them as compatible to the new systems as possible. They don't have great graphics though. But if you want to play, you want to play something from 1989. I don't know. Play the original Baldur's Gate as opposed to the enhanced edition. You want to play, which is 2000, 2001. You want to play Jet Empire. You want to play Mass Effect, Dragon Age, etc. They're more likely to do the necessary work to essentially mod the game or update the game so it works. It doesn't work all the time. Neverwinter Nights is a great example of that. I have it, and it just have loading issues. But that's you can only do so much. But that's one avenue, but it's very restricted avenue. Steam sells all games, but Steam says, well, it boots up, so that's all we need to do. They just do a boot up test, and after that, and even then,
yeah, yeah. There's been cases, and that's the thing too. Was it also last year that I believe they pulled Alan Wake from the store because not so much the distributor, but the developer lost the license to a lot of the music that was used in the game because their original publisher didn't buy like the licenses out for so long. Mm-hmm. So unless you already purchased a game beforehand, game's gone.
Mm-hmm. Until they change the music, if they ever update it, and I doubt it. I mean, it's an old game that they're not going to make a profit on it, because music licenses, that's another thing. They're very expensive, and if you want what's called a lifetime license, essentially, right, tied to a specific product, you're going to have to pay. Well, depending on the songs and the catalogs and who owns what, that's another kettle of fish when it comes to copyright and all of that. Could be tens of thousands of dollars per song.
Yeah.
And you can also have multiple versions of the same song. So which version is it? And do you have the right to remix that song? Which usually what's happened when you do a video game, because you have to do sound design, right? That's one of the reasons why a lot of games still choose to make their own in-house, soundtracks. Also, they used to be better focused on the gameplay, but only companies like, say, Rockstar can really afford to have hours on end of music, and even then they sometimes have to change music and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And of course, so that kind of brings up the issue of, well, if there's no hard copy, anyone the developers, the publishers, or even like the distributing platform that you're buying it on, what if they go belly up? Gone. There goes your product, unless you had it already installed. Mm-hmm. And that's also kind of sad when you think about indie games. So a lot of indie games never get physical copies because it's expensive, unless they get really popular or they're willing to put up the money for something like limited runs. Mm-hmm. Or what's that, Fan Gamer? That's another company that also will order physical copies of indie games. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I kind of like going out of my way. If I enjoy a game, mm-hmm. I always want a physical copy, just in case.
But the physical copies, like I said before, it does have the problems that they're usually tied to the hardware that goes with it.
Yep.
Like
I still have my original copy of Mass Effect, but that means if I ever want to revisit that particular copy, I have to keep my Xbox 360 around, mm-hmm.
or
and hope it doesn't break down.
Well, if you're a collector, that's great, and I know people who are great collectors, and even the big YouTubers. One of the things that they always show is that they have this huge collection of N64s and Xboxes and Sega machines, and and you can emulate. But then when you get to emulation, you get to the whole thing about vaporware and shareware and abandonware, because that's another thing. In the past, because patching was so rare and it was all about the physical copy, in essence, once a game was released, After a
That's it.
time, it was abandoned, right? Unless they kept putting out sequels, and even then, you know EA, again, going back to EA, they own a lot of companies. They have the entire catalog from Origin, the company. That includes every single game from the Ultima series. It includes things like the old games from Wing Commander, right? And all those things. They're not going to re-release Wing Commander. They're not going to go back to Ultima. But they're still going to make the claim. Atari, I think, whoever owns the rights to Atari, also was a lawsuit about a game that was one of the earliest games in video game history, which is basically it's just you shooting around a grid, right, with music and stuff. And they were like, oh, we're going to sue and this and that because you made this game. It was very too, argument it was too similar. The original, even the designer essentially had worked on earlier versions of the game for another company that had the name of Atari. It actually, these kinds of things actually encourage piracy and abandonware concepts. Like, you're making it too hard for us to play the kind of games that we want to play. You're not keeping them updated, which is again, patching culture is supposed to be the benefits of digital distribution. You're not even selling them anymore, but you're grubbily hanging on to the idea because maybe one day you might want to do something with it.
Yeah, like also from last year, I believe there was a popular Metroid game that was being developed by fans, a fan-made game, old 2D side scroller, and as soon as Nintendo got a whiff of them, came down on them.
Yeah, fan games as well. There used to be a time where the industry actually, kind of didn't look the other way, but kind of looked sideways to just like, well, I can't see it right now. I'm working on something else. Oh, there's a fan game. Oh, okay. Who made that fan game? Okay, let's see if it works. Unless the game was so horrible that it actually affected the name of the game, the franchise, they would go like, oh, well, this is actually a good game. We're always looking to hire new people. It used to be a way of a resume. Making fan games and making stuff like this and making DLC, and not DLC, but mods used to be a way of, having a way of resume. It's like, hey, look what I can do, right? Also brings to paid mods as well. Bethesda, once again,
Oh, has that even gained any more ground?
It's there.
I think it's there.
It's just there, and I don't know anybody who has. I haven't had anybody who says, "Oh yeah, I bought $100 worth of mods. I bought in the creation
all those
club.
Creation Club mods. Oh my god, they make the game so much better.
I'm sure might be community somewhere out there, but you also have Nexus mods, right? And that's another thing. Is like, oh yeah, I have this game. I have a DRM and all that, but then I'm going to depend on modders to keep my game alive. Right.
Yeah.
But the moment they cross a line, like, oh, I don't know, like putting single player mods on your GTA 5, then actually, because the single player doesn't have all the nice toys that you can only get through microtransactions or playing hundreds of hours on GTA 5 online, I want to do that on my single player. Oh, well, we can't have that. It was Take-Two who said this, and then Rockstar were like, shut up, dude. We're making millions of dollars a month. Come on. This is just people. Eventually, those people might jump into and they're gonna buy the next game. They're potential customers. Don't fuck it up. We don't really have a good thing here going. Which brings me to another point, and that is, microtransactions. One of the reasons why DRM is there is to, always hawk these things, have you always be online. So even in a single player game, you have microtransactions.
Yeah, or something that's even a little more desirable towards the gaming companies is information. Like, who are your players? What are they doing in your game? Mm-hmm. How do they behave? And just trying to get, your customers, and sort of like, not so much invasive, but sort of sneaky kind of way of like, almost like peeking into someone's window and just watching them, just how they behave when they think that no one's watching.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you like, we're both the Mass Effect players. With the Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, there wasn't an always online element, but if you just happen to be online, it does. I believe the game is gathering data through Origins, or if you're PlayStation Network, Xbox Live,
Mhm.
and just seeing, hey, X number of people played this way, made these choices,
Yeah. Uh,
prefer these companions, bought all this DLC.
One of the most important numbers out there right now, especially with microtransaction driven economies and in video games, is the daily concurrent users. How many people are consistently playing the game and how long they're playing it. The when you go to Steam, when I was loading up Mass Effect, it says, "Oh, you played this game for 108 hours," which is a lot. I'm sorry, Papa Fritas, but that's just the way it is. Yeah, I'm addicted to love, and you have that, and it's I played for 108 hours or 200 hours. I think I have like 200, 300 hours or 400 hours on Skyrim, right? That alone, even if it's a single player game, is valuable information to them. And if it's a multiplayer game, even more so. Because the people that play the most are the people that are most heavily invested in the game, and they're the people more likely to pre-order games, pre-order deluxe editions, DLC, and above all else, get those sweet, sweet microtransactions. The more you spend, the more invested you are, which means at least you spend more. So simply tracking, even the real number when they make sales is not actual sale numbers, although those are important. It's how many
Yeah.
people actually downloaded the game and activated it. That's a far more important number than just X amount of people bought it. Pre-orders are in fact more important than the actual overall sales. That's like, for example, you hear, like, I think was the first Lara Croft game made 10 million sales, which is a good number. Of course, you have games that made 25 million sales, that are 80 million sales. So, your Minecrafts, your original Destinies, that sort of thing, right? Okay, fine. But 10 million is a good number. But it did it over the period of a year, which means that they know that the people who bought that game, especially if they have any type of DRM or online tracking, remember, DRM is not anti-piracy, it's digital rights management. Essentially, company watching over you and having you on the hook all the time. If those people bought those games on sale, and again, you buy even the language is like it's troublesome because you actually don't buy this. We were saying earlier. If they bought it, if they got access to the game, but you're getting access. That's the accurate term for it. At $40, $30, $20, right? And most of the people who got into the game at those lower price points. It certainly means that they took a hit, because say 2 million got access on release, versus say the other 8 million at a 20% off, 50% off, 60% off. That's different.
Yeah.
And so, you have the situation that we have here. And so it's all it's all complicated, and the idea that you don't really own your games, I think that's what really irks me personally. Right? But the language is like, well, it's a winter sale. People are buying games. X amount of people bought these games, but not really. And then again, from putting my lawyer's hand on, is that we now of course we have EA pushing for things like sales as service, but they in Origin, for example, say, pay us like $5 a month, which seems like a very low low number, about $50-$60 a year. It's okay. I spent far more on that when I was playing WoW, right? And you get there, in time.
$10 a month.
You get no, actually it was $15 a month originally, or 30 months every 2 months if you got the scratch cards. So if they wanted you on the hook for 2 months back to back. Smart Blizzard's also being at the forefront of this for a very long time. Um, but the thing about it is, again, it sounds like a rental, but it's not really a rental, right? Because if you have a monthly subscription, then you're really renting, right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of in modern day markets. There's a lot of protections that renters have. People who rent. But I doubt very much that EA is gonna. They have a rental model, but they don't necessarily have a legal model to go with it. If rental had that legal model to go with it, and they was not so attached to the idea of DRM and licensing and all that, then I would go like, at least I know where my rights are. But if you haven't made the transition, then we're still stuck in this middle where either you're telling me that I'm buying stuff that I don't own, or I am renting stuff that I have not rental rights to. Either way, and it's this gray area that's a problem.
Huh. Now that you brought that up, since Sony started doing that with PlayStation Live, I believe it lets you rent or stream certain games.
Yeah, but the streaming services, that's another attempt at that, and never be taken off because internet in most places of the world is fast enough so you can play multiplayer games, but streaming takes a little bit more than that. And that was also the idea of the cloud and all of that, which
and of course their way around the backwards compatibility for a PlayStation 3, since that entire architecture is really different than the PlayStation 4
or 2.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Oh, your games that's another benefit, supposedly, having always online is there. Oh, you have the games in the cloud. What happens if somebody breaches the cloud? What happens when you close the cloud? You know how many cloud services are just closed? What happens if you lose your password to the cloud service? Like, this happened to me with iTunes. I used to love iTunes until I made a simple mistake of closing my email account with Yahoo, which was the email account I was using for iTunes.
Ooh.
Now, I'm sure there's an entire retrieval effort that I have to get with my name and my social security and my date of birth and my date of expected death and my health insurance or whatever to get my iTunes account open again. But I can't, which means I have the songs, and if I have an iTunes device, I can listen to it, but I can't listen to them in my PC. It simply blocks the song, some of the songs, not all of them. So it's like I'm blocked. I don't have a right to it anymore. Something similar happened like about 5-6 years ago with Amazon, where literally Amazon reached into Kindles and said, "Oh, that book you have there, never mind, we're gonna take it away." They can do that, again, because you don't have, the law is not clear on who owns what, and so you have this essentially digital distribution companies, Amazon, video game companies, etc., to say, okay, license, you have the right to use, you have access to use, but you don't own anything. And we also don't have a rental, so we don't have to guarantee things that we would have to guarantee under a rental agreement either.
Oof.
And there was something else, microtransactions. And this really goes to Chad, if Chad is listening. If you're a person who has spent any amount of money on microtransactions, I got news for you. And this is something that already people on Destiny already learned the hard way. You don't own anything, which means that they're virtual goods that only exist within the virtual space. All these games are eventually going to die. Or they're going to have a Destiny 3 or World of Warcraft 15 or whatever. You're going to have a transition. They're going to have something else that's going to be the new game. There is no business in them taking those old pieces of software, of code, and transferring them to the new environment when they can sell you essentially new pieces of code, which is what they're selling you. The skins, the sprays, the voice lines, the whatever. That's what they are, pieces of code.
Yeah, I believe in Destiny 2, or they just let you transfer how your character looked like and just some stats, and that's it. Everything else that you've acquired throughout that 2-year lifespan of Destiny 1 gone. Just
Yeah. And also there's even a question of some companies have done this, but many companies refuse to do it. Like in World of Warcraft, people were doing like legacy servers
yeah,
that got shut down because, of course, now Blizzard is going, oh yeah, we're gonna make legacy servers now. They haven't released it yet. They announced it in 2017. Whether they're gonna implement it and how they're gonna implement it, nobody knows. But apparently, they're gonna do that. It's a good idea, but the fact is that they now control what goes into the legacy service. And
yeah,
exactly what do you get if you go? Basically, you roll back the clock, because with someone else's legacy service, essentially you're playing a subversion of World of Warcraft, right? So you kind of know what
yeah.
you're getting into. That's not the same thing when you go, oh, we're gonna do that as an option in World of Warcraft, regular World of
But
Warcraft, which feels more like a rollback. And how far they're
yeah,
gonna roll back. And again, look at all the things you probably bought, all the mounts, all the skins, all the things, all the
yeah, and
bases.
I don't think it's going to be a true legacy
Mm-mm.
thing, because they're probably going to keep those microtransactions in there. Hey, you want to level up your character to the max, $60.
Yeah, I mean, like I said many times before, it's in many ways it's the victory of the gold sellers, right? Basically, people like Blizzard threw their hands up, was like, oh, there's just too much money here, so we might as well just do it ourselves, right?
Yep.
Why give it to some company somewhere in China, some guys, in a slave server somewhere, just let's do it ourselves, right? So they don't even know that. So you can spend. Some people have spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on microtransactions, on mobile games, on other things. And when you combine the fact that you have an indie developer in a mobile environment, or even a PC or a console, maybe just one person, they might literally die. They might just
Yeah.
drop dead, and they don't update the game anymore. Nobody knows where they are.
Mm,
Apple's still gonna Google, and Apple's still gonna take your money until they decide, oh,
yeah.
until they just cancel the game, right? That's it. That's all to it. I mean, it's very fragile. I think a lot of people are the few conveniences that are there when you really sort of scratch the surface are quickly they're quickly overwhelmed by the real and potential problems. And we already talked about a lot of the real problems here. Um, and we will say, well, why are you playing old games? Well, because old games are fun.
Yeah. There you
Just saying.
relive some nostalgia. Sometimes they're old games that no one's doing anything new with them.
Hmm.
That there's no new genres that try to replicate this formula that's still fun.
Yeah. Or you just want to go back. I mean, why do you think there's a retro scene? Why do you think there's always these constant repackaging of old games? Because you have nostalgia, because you have these things, but it doesn't happen all the time. And again, companies die, people pass away, companies get bought, etc., and sold. You get data gets lost, right? If you don't have an original copy, you don't have the original hardware. I mean, if I want to play the original Doom, I don't have a version that came up saying the BFG edition of Doom 3, or the one I bought and with GOG, which I basically bought the game twice. That's fine. I would have to get an old Win 95 or Win 3.x PC with all the trimmings, including a big old CRT and a CD-ROM and a 56 modem and 486 motherboard and AtLib sound card, and try to run my version of Doom there, which seems a little bit expensive just to run a copy of Doom. One of the games I tried to play for a very long time was Diablo 2, and until Blizzard didn't make it available for free, although you need to get the original CD key, you couldn't play it because my copy of the CD got corrupted, and I was never able to replay it again.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I bought it. I like the idea to replay that game again. or the original Diablo, right? And also there's stuff that can be learned from older games, right? If it's only don't do this. You know, like, you know, why do we have like improvements in gameplay and stuff like that? Yeah, because it used to be pretty slow, pretty crappy with, you know, with the, you know, 2-button mouses back in the day, right?
Or just like very simplistic movements and cinematics.
You know, stuff like that. I want to play the other game was Dune 2000, and that game it uses FMBs for cutscenes, but the gameplay itself holds up pretty well. Like if you want to know where RTS started, Dune 2 and Dune 2000 are the way to go, right? You want to know FPSs? The original Wolfenstein 3D. And the thing is the games, as new games come about, the games that you're playing now that are the hot shit, they're gonna be the outdated stuff
at some point.
It's like,
I mean, look at the majority of like libraries for Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
Mm-hmm.
There are a bunch of HC Remix, which is just a updated port.
Yeah. And
so, I mean, that kind of, what does that say about people wanting to relive their nostalgia or catch up on old games?
Look at Call of Duty. One of the problems, not the current version of Call of Duty, but the last of the advanced sci-fi-ish Call of Duties, one of the things that it had was that it was going to include a copy of
Modern
Warfare, which was a very popular game and a lot of people wanted to play it. Guess what? You had to pay for the full game to get the old game, and not only that, you couldn't buy it separately. It came preloaded with a ton of microtransactions because Activision went back and remade the game. They didn't actually change the game itself, but they changed enough of the game to get away with that, right? And also, Activision has a lot of problems because they're being older games, especially online games that are very popular, and they still have to keep them alive because they have millions of players. Versions of Call of Duty, people are still playing and still making money for them, sort of. But if it doesn't make money, they're gonna close it. I mean, it's just a mess.
And of course, it wasn't a definitive edition because then they later sold the map packs at much more when they first launched the release of first map packs.
Yeah. And newer versions of a game could have missing features that were in the original as well, right?
Actually, like the PS3 version, updated version of Mass Effect didn't have the Pinnacle Station. Granted, that wasn't a very big loss, but that's a feature or content that I couldn't get in the PS3 version if I ever wanted to play it for some reason.
Or in the case of rights, again, Mass Effect. Mass Effect originally was an Xbox 360 exclusive on the Microsoft games. When EA bought out, when Rick Riccatello, who owned BioWare by version of a holding company that he had, went into Electronic Arts. And by the way, if you want to know the story of that, I will point you to Nerd Slayer's channel, Death of a Game. Last video he did was on SWTOR, Star Wars The Old Republic. Very fascinating stuff about BioWare and how that game came about and how EA got involved and all that. So point your browsers, once you're done here, point your browsers over there and watch the video if it's not, whenever available to you. It's available on YouTube and also has a Twitch channel as well. So he's a great guy and I interviewed him. So he has a great coverage of that. But one of the things that happened was, of course, BioWare had the rights to make more Mass Effect games, but they didn't have, we talked before, the distribution rights to the original Mass Effect. Those were still on Microsoft's hands. So when EA wanted to make the game more popular and they wanted to sell it to the PlayStation, the way they could sell Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 was by adding a interactive comic book that, first of all, the art, ugly as balls.
Yeah.
The art is just ugly. I don't know. I don't know.
It's one of those. It tried, but it didn't really succeed very well.
It looked like somebody who tried to draw it. Somebody who got concept art of Mass Effect, but actually played Mass Effect, right?
And kind of an artist from the '90s as well.
Yes, somebody who's just drew a lot of DC comics from the door cage or Marvel comics from the door cage.
Well, I think it was an interactive comic by Dark Horse or something.
Well, interactive, and then you press a couple of buttons and make a couple of decisions, right?
Yep.
And that was how they fill in. And if you play using the comics, there's a lot of secondary characters and stuff that doesn't happen because it didn't get recorded. It wasn't until eventually Microsoft sold the rights, distribution right back to EA for millions of dollars, and then they got the repackaging of the game for the PlayStation on the one banner, on the N7 banner.
Yep, and even then, I don't think they patched it to where the PS3 version of Mass Effect 2 could import your save from Mass Effect 1. So I'm not entirely sure if that's the whole content. And again, I don't know how a company does that, but apparently they lost the source code for the Pinnacle Station, and that's why it's not in Mass Effect 1 for the PS3 version, which not a big loss, but again, that's content that existed before for the game that's no longer available.
I have a theory about that. That by loss, basically somebody had it. It was all in one disc. Still physical media. They looked at it. It was a sunny day in Canada. The windows were open, and they were like, "Oh, fuck it," and threw it out the window. And they quit the company. It was like, I don't care, and landed in some lake or somewhere, and nobody saw it ever again. Like, oh, screw this, because Pinnacle Station isn't very good, so it's not a big loss.
It's just a little shooting gallery just for Mass Effect's amazing shooting mechanics and combat system. Because
I think Pinnacle Station was designed to essentially be a precursor to multiplayer.
Yeah, because they did have a multiplayer game in the works using Mass Effect 1 assets.
Yeah, but that didn't pan out, and that's why it ended up with Pinnacle Station. We ended up with having multiplayer on Mass Effect 3, which, by the way, another story about Mass Effect 3. When I first, in my old machine, who couldn't, probably couldn't boot itself up even if we tried, I had to kick it into gear every time I tried to boot it up. It was that old. But I could manage to play Mass Effect 3. But I decided, okay, I'm going to get the demo first. Well, I got the demo. The stuff that was designed to get me to buy their game, mind you, from Origin, of all places, and to sell me on the idea of using Origin as a platform, a digital platform. But I could not connect to the internet to validate my copy of the free demo designed to sell me on the game that they wanted me to buy, right? Talking about ownership and all that. The only way I could do it was to put Origin in offline mode so that the game would not try to call their servers. Apparently, the demo wasn't on the same servers that they used for Mass Effect 3 for some reason. So there was that. So in essence, in order to get the demo, because that game wasn't on Steam, and there wasn't a demo on they used to have a demo on the page, BioWare page, but they took that out. Again, they can change these things whenever they want to. That's another thing. If you also depend on stuff on web pages, and web pages get closed or abandoned, then that's another problem. We talked about that with the Vita. Then I had to go offline on the online platform client, and they want me to use and you're shooting yourself in the foot here. So, had I not, if that had been my first interaction with it, I'd probably never buy Mass Effect 3. It's like, screw this, I don't need this. So it's a mess, and the thing about it is I don't see any real solutions other than changing attitudes in the industry. Like, okay, open the door to abandonware, right? Make clear declarations when you go, okay, we're not going to support this game anymore, and it's going to be abandonware. If you're going to have multiplayer, and you already have a life, because these things get planned out. Like, we think this game is going to be available for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. Then go like, okay, we're going to give it to public service. People are going to create their own service. Create a ULA. Say, okay, you can create the server under these conditions, right? and you can do this, and you're free to go. And that's gonna actually keep an audience playing that you don't have to pay anything for, right? They're still gonna be interested in your game, and there are probably people that when you announce a new version of a game, they go like, "Oh yeah, okay," like shareware with Doom. What do you think Doom
Yeah.
was so successful? Because it was shareware, right?
Or
You could,
make them peer to peer too.
peer to peer,
Make them old school.
and making all school, make people be able to make play servers. Like used to be people were to play even before the internet. They were able to connect. Oh, they were Wide Web. There's a difference. Connect and their own connections, right? Either peer to peer or over the phone.
LAN parties.
LAN parties, right? Make it available. AAA industry. I know this is what some people like to call virtual signaling, but sometimes virtual signaling works. Being the good guy once in a while actually works, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably, and of course, hopefully more sites like GOG and stuff like that will rise up and keep going. And well, I'm technically, well, not technically, I'm just an individual. I'm not supposed, as a quote unquote video game critic, I'm not supposed to encourage emulation. I would say, if absolutely there's no way you can get this game from legal means, get the ROM and just play it and have fun.
Yeah, sometimes that's the only way to keep games alive.
Mm-hmm.
That or you have fans editing codes and or making patches themselves. One of the biggest games that I play, which I got back here, is Dracon Order of the Flame. There's a community for it that they keep updating patches for every new Windows system to get it to run stably, because it is an old game from like 1999.
Mm-hmm.
People like make it to where you can play multiplayer on it, because it did have an okay but not really fantastic multiplayer system, but not really necessary. And well, I don't think I see it so much, but not the tools are still technically there to make your own levels, because the original developers did release a editing kit so you can make your own levels and stuff. But people used to make a lot of fan mods, fan games. They pushed that little engine and its tools to the limit.
And one of the games that we talked about last year, literally last week, that I'm looking forward to is Neverwinter Nights. And one of the reasons why Neverwinter Nights was so popular, and I think it will be popular again, at least with me, and it's a re-release, is because it has and had a huge community, in part because that game had a level and module editor. People wanted to make their own adventures in, right? BioWare trusted the community and said, hey, we're going to give you powerful tools to make your own Dungeons and Dragons game, basically. It's not simply play our version of the game, make your own. And I think Divinity Original Sin 2 has also GM
like
level too. So that in some cases can work as well. And one of the things that Beamdog, which is the people who are re-releasing Neverwinter Nights, says that this new version will be compatible with all those things in the past. How true that is, we'll put it to the test. At least I'll try to put it to the test on stream. But they do that, right?
Yeah,
and that's a good move. And you're keeping a franchise alive, and maybe you can have a Neverwinter 3 or 4 or 5 down the line, right? If you want to revive it.
And even then too, with the thing with modders, as well as you have modders building on top of other mods, or even the creators of these mods keeping these mods up to date.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about earlier, one of the much needed mods for Mass Effect is the MEUITM mod, which installs a lot of textures, because the original textures are awful. Makes them new, and actually on July 1st or January 1st, they released a 10-year anniversary for their mod that just improves it even further.
Which I installed, and I'm crossing my fingers that it will work. So now we're coming down to the last minute or a couple of seconds of the program. So this is where we come to the announcements. So first of all, Chapomon, where can we find you on the interwebs?
I am Chopplemon pretty much anywhere, and on Twitter, I am Chopplemon_Aragon. You can watch my videos on YouTube at Chopplemon.
And you can find me here on Twitch on the Lessons Learned 1, and you can find me on YouTube on the Lessons Learned, and on Tumblr and on Twitter you can find me on the Rafa Writer / Lessons Learned as well. And one of the reasons why we also talk a lot about Mass Effect once again, so I'll be starting streaming tomorrow on here in this channel hopefully the entire Mass Effect saga, including the trilogy, not all the DLC. I'll talk about that. The mod, all the games will be modded because they're older games, but they will be modded, and I will not be using a lot of the DLC, except perhaps the DLC on the Mass Effect 2 that will be complete. But Mass Effect 1 won't have Pinnacle Station, and when we get to Mass Effect 3, I'll talk about some of the DLC that I will not be playing for reasons of both personal taste and sanity. So you wanted me... Oh, but I will be playing Andromeda, which was on sale until there's another winter sale on Origins. I got it for $20. I said, you know what? I cannot play Andromeda. I cannot... At least for my own sake, I cannot give the game justice unless I play the whole thing. I can't say I played the Mass Effect saga unless playing Andromeda. Whether I end up loving it or hating it, well, and you're willing to wait out the journey, I'll be doing that. So thank you for commenting as always. And like this or any video or show on this channel, please comment, follow, and subscribe. And we will see you when we see you. Have a very good night.
Good night, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.